We're live without the intro video. That was weird.
Who needs an intro video after what we just witnessed on Toronto soil this evening?
Oh, I know. Good Lord. Well, welcome into the Two for Talking podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Corey Tusick. I've got comedian Joe Bartnick and Josh Yohe with The Athletic alongside. And before we get into everything, I want to let you guys know you should check out all of Josh's work at the Athletic. He was just over in Sweden hanging out with a couple of people in the Penguins organization. So there's some info there, but you should also be checking out Joe. Joe will be in Weatherford, Connecticut. That is, I believe, Memorial Day weekend, 5/23 to 24.
Yeah, next Friday, Saturday in Connecticut. The weekend after that, I'm at the Blue Lake Casino in Blue Lake, California. June 5th, I am at Zany's in Nashville. And in July 10th, I will be at the Improv in Pittsburgh. I just did a set the other night. It was fantastic stuff. I love that club more and more and more.
Well, yeah, no, I've heard Zany's is great. And
Zany's is fabulous. Yeah, I have way more summer ones, but we'll keep it to this.
Yeah.
Josh has had some hot news and some coaching stuff. And we just saw the most ridiculous choke job. It's one thing to suck in game 5. But you'd think, Josh, they could come back in game 6. I'm sorry, game 7, excuse me.
I didn't think they would lose 6-1 again. And it just goes to show, listen, there's two stories here. And we're going to get to this in a minute because the Florida Panthers, like someone's going to have to kill those guys. And it just, they won't go away. And they are true champions in every sense of the word. They really are. And I have a lot of respect for them. And to go up to Toronto and what they did tonight, like they deserve some credit. That was a man-sized performance there. It really was. But Toronto, like, listen, this is the most predictable thing ever. To get destroyed on home ice twice and to see what we've seen from this group time and time and time again. It's one thing if you lose in overtime in game 7, or if Mikko Rantanen puts up a hat trick against you in the third period of games. Okay, those things happen, but to just embarrass yourself on home ice, I have so many thoughts. Mitch Marner, give me a break. I don't know how much money he's going to get this summer, but it's probably going to be too much. Why the hell is Austin Matthews the captain of Team USA? What's he ever won? Like, where are his leadership credentials? Where was he when his team needed him tonight? We say it every year about him. It's going to be a fascinating summer in Toronto. They're a really good team. They have a really good coach. There's something wrong with that team. And to consistently do this on home ice like they do every year, that tells me it's just a mental thing, that the pressure of playing in that city is too much for this particular group of players. I think that's very clear at this point.
And I thought as soon as I saw them score at the beginning of the third period, I was like, I guarantee you they give up a goal within a couple minutes. And it wasn't even a minute. It's the most Toronto thing ever.
Yeah, I actually thought that Matthews played a pretty solid game tonight. He didn't score, which is per usual. He did score in game 6. Marner, absolute no-show. And I'm telling you right now, Kyle Dubas, if you sign Mitch Marner, I will throw you off the U.S. Steel Building or whatever they call it. You can write that in a record. Please, dear God, do not bring him to Pittsburgh. I can talk about how everyone in Toronto, this series sucked for the most part after the midpoint in game 3, because as the great Edzo pointed out, they were up 2-0 and leading 3-1 in game 3.
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding me? But I will choose to tap the stick to Mr. Bill Zito, who, as my colleague and dear friend Andy Piccaro pointed out, maybe had the second, he definitely had the second best and the third best trade deadline acquisition. Seth Jones and the Rat, the absolute difference in this series. And not that almost everybody in Florida didn't outplay everybody on Toronto, but what Seth Jones and what the Rat did tonight was just exquisite.
When you have Lundell and Marchand on your third line, Joe, like that's the kind of depth that wins a championship. Okay, that's the thing about Florida. We always say it about them. They can beat you so many different ways. Like Kachuk is clearly not 100% right now. He's playing with an injury, and I give him credit for gutting it out. He's not going to carry them right now, but somebody else will. They can come at you from so many different angles. Bobrovsky was great in the last 4 games of this series after a slow start. But when you have Lundell and Marchand on your third line, that's such of a difference. And in the big games, like Florida just knows how to win. They defend so brilliantly, better than anybody else. And I knew when I saw them play against Tampa and how easily they dispatched at Tampa, I thought to myself, Jesus, maybe they got one last run in them. And then we saw what happened at the beginning of that series. But when they won game 3, as you mentioned, Joe, they came back and won that game. You kind of knew this might happen.
Well, yes. And as great of a leader as Kachuk is, I love Matthew Kachuk. It's like if he missed this series, Sam Bennett would have just stepped up and won the series. Literally, Reinhart didn't even do much. Barkov was his usual silent brilliance, but he didn't jump off the score sheet. No. Just their third, fourth, and fifth line guys. They reinvented. He brought in a whole new fourth line, which I was thinking, why is it Nosek and why isn't Gadovich playing it? He throws them in. Boom. What was it? Game 5? Like 5 guys who never scored in the playoffs before scored. It was an embarrassment. It was an embarrassment for Toronto. And I will say this, I don't know if things would have changed if Stolarz would have played, but Joe Woll, 2 games in a row, not up to it. And you absolutely see why Bobrovsky will be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, no doubt. I agree with everything you said. Billy Zito might be the best GM in hockey right now. And I can't think of anybody who I consider to be a better coach right now than Paul Maurice. He's always been a great coach. And sometimes the right coach just finds the right team. And they're just a perfect match. And I feel like nobody's really been talking about them this postseason, where we're distracted by Dallas and how impressive their roster is. And it is. And McDavid and Draisaitl and what they're doing again. And Carolina, just how efficiently they've gone through the first 2 rounds. But somebody's got to kill this team. And they are just true champions in every sense of the word. They really are. They are just tough as nails mentally more than anything. They weren't rattled down 2-0. Most teams would have been done at that point, especially falling behind in game 3. They weren't rattled. They went up to Ontario and took care of business, outscoring the Leafs 12-2. So I give them so much credit, and I wouldn't be. They could win the whole thing again, and it wouldn't shock me. I just think that highly of everything about that organization, really. And then I look at the Maple Leafs, and they had a really good season. And Berube, you're not going to find a better coach than him. There's just something wrong with that team. I'm sorry. And it starts at the top. It starts with the big guys. Nylander and Tavares were okay in this postseason. Marner was really bad in the big games. And he has a history of no showing a little bit in the big games. Let's be honest. So does Matthews. I don't know what happens there this summer. I'm sure we're going to have to hear about it ad nauseum, because that's the way it goes when there's Maple Leafs news. They've got to do something different with that team, though. You can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again, because every time a big game comes, every single time, they wanted to choke away that Ottawa series when they were up 3-0. There's just something psychologically wrong with that group.
I'll tell you what's the real damning thing is that I guess Marner had a no trade clause, because the real damning thing is they said, hey, we're going to send you to Carolina for Mikko Rantanen. And if they ever didn't need, everybody needs Mikko Rantanen. But if they needed anybody with a big pair of nuts to drag that team in a game 5 at home and a game 7 at home, it's that team. And boy, would he have looked a lot better on Austin Matthews' line than Mitch Marner, who looks like he plays like a scared Connor Sherry. Because Connor Sherry always had nuts. It would score in big games. He's like an ineffective Connor. He's like Penguins Erod. Not now that Erod's become a champion.
No, I mean it's true, and and you're right, Corey. You mentioned in the third period they scored to make it 3-1. Like, okay, they got exactly what they needed. They got the goal early in the third period. Now there's life in the building. What was it, 45 seconds later? I mean, that's what great teams do, and it's also what choke artists do, right? And that's kind of what they both are. And I give the Leafs credit for what they did this regular season. They had a great regular season, but we say that every year about them. Um, some teams just don't have it in their DNA, and some groups don't have it to win big games, and they are polar opposites of the Florida Panthers. And that was the microcosm in the first 2 minutes of the third period. The way Florida said, "No, no, actually, we're going to score right into the game's over. You have no chance." Man, what a moment that was.
Well, I thought that Florida got away with about 3 penalties that, if you're going to call penalties, they were playoff worthy. You dragged the guy down for no reason penalties in the first period.
Right.
If you're going to give each team a power play early, just okay.
Right.
But they also, that Seth Jones that was a goal. It should have been 4-0. I don't know how that clown waves that. Was he drinking when he was waiting to get in the game? I mean, the ref. That's a goal. I know how that's not. How was that not a goal, Corey?
No, I agree. And you're right. That Florida did probably get away with a couple, but the Stanley Cup champion often does.
Well, I'm just saying it may have helped Toronto maybe get an early power play. Maybe. I still think they would have lost.
No, sure
it just would have been more exciting. My mom wouldn't have fallen asleep in between the first and second period.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Florida just no matter the situation, you want to play in a shootout, you want to win a 2-1 game, you want to turn it into an alley fight. Florida will beat you in any manner, and the Leafs certainly don't have that in their repertoire. And you could just feel it early in this game, because the Leafs, listen, to go down to Lauderdale and to win Game 6, that's pretty impressive. I think most people thought the series was over after Game 5. You would think doing that would produce some kind of momentum for Game 7, that the Leafs would come out storming. And that's what most teams would do in that situation if they had just gone down in Game 6 and won. But they get consumed clearly by things that have happened in the past. It's plain as day. It's just planted in their heads. And that's why I don't think you can keep that group together any longer. I'm not saying blow it up. I'm saying they need to make a legitimate move or two moving forward.
The domination that Florida inflicted tonight on Toronto for a good 30 of the first 40 minutes was Lemieux and Stevens and Ronnie on an expansion Tampa Bay Lightning or San Jose Shark team.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my mother was appalled. And she was rooting for Florida. She goes, the other team can never get the puck.
Yeah. I mean, did you see that? A 3-minute shift in the third period? Where it's just Toronto didn't their guys weren't even moving. I mean, who could blame them? They were on the ice for 120 seconds. So,
but I mean, it was utter domination. I mean, that's and as good as Florida is, it shouldn't have been that easy for them in a Game 7 on the road. Not supposed to be that easy, but it obviously was in this case. And,
let's bring it a little bit back home for a second here, because we get upset that if that would happen to the Penguins, it would be Letang or Gino or Sid starting to fight, but at least it would be one of those 3 guys. Now we always say, why can't the underlings do that? But nobody on Toronto does that.
No,
you talk about a lack of franchise pride. I mean, to just take that beating twice.
I had 3 different people text me in the second period. All 3 of them said the Leafs look like they're playing a regular season game tonight. They didn't get the memo that it's Game 7 against the defending Stanley Cup champions on your home ice. It doesn't check out on one level, but then on another level, it doesn't surprise you at all, because we've seen this from this team over. It's not a coincidence anymore. It's every single year. And yet I keep going back to Florida because I still want to give them credit. They are the most macho hockey team we've seen in a long time. They are so tough And when I say tough, I don't, yeah, they'll beat you up, but they are so mentally tough. Like nothing gets to them, nothing rattles them. And I think that's a credit to their coach. But I also think it's the people they have on their team. By all accounts, Barkov is a great captain. I think Matthew Tkachuk should be the captain of Team USA. Brad Marchand's been a very respect. I know a lot of people don't like Marchand, but his teammates always love him.
I love the rat.
That guy's a leader who shows up in big games. Like you go right down the list on that team. That actually reminds me of a story, Mike, from years ago. I was talking with Mike Sullivan. I said, Mike, I understand how easily or how you won the 2016 Cup because that team was so great. I said, how'd you do it in 2017? And when Letang was out and your team was exhausted, and he said to me, he said, I wasn't even nervous in 2016. Even when we fell down 3-2 to Tampa, I wasn't nervous because I knew we were the best team. He said, in 2017, we only won the Cup because we had a lot of alpha males. He said, you don't win Stanley Cups without alpha males. The Florida Panthers are nothing but alpha males, like right down the list. And it was just so evident tonight. It looked like men against boys, didn't it?
It certainly did. I always say that too. 17, there's just 5 or 6 of those guys just dragged.
Oh yeah,
dragged them by
to the Cup. You know, and it's so funny. There was a time over the weekend where where like all the goal scorers where it was cool. They were all ex-Penguins. It was like Casper the Friendly, like 4 in a row were like Casper the Friendly Ghost, Kulikov, like every, and then who was the other guy? Oh, and then two from Granlund. Like everyone we got rid of to get.
Well, and you know the great Orbaugh, who's so good at cataloging every Penguin that's ever played for them, who's what their jersey number was, who wore it last, and when they score, he was having a field day with that because he was like, oh, I saw him again and be like, oh, great, the Penguins ex players are doing great.
I always give credit where credit's due, but I actually didn't even use it. I just myself, I'm like, oh, that's funny. Casper, like, oh, Granlund, oh, Kulikov. It was like.
If we would have just held on to those guys, damn it. Josh, you said though with the alpha male thing, and I think that's what needs to change in Toronto, is they have great talent. They always have, great talent rolling through, but they don't really have the alpha male. They don't have the guy that's showing up. And I mean, I'm not, talking Pirates and like God knows they suck, but like somebody with like a Paul Skeens level swagger that like, doesn't care about all that, because it is. I mean, if you're in Toronto, it doesn't matter if you're in Toronto in August. There's a feeling in that town that is all consuming about how the Leafs have not won the Stanley Cup. I had to get my tire changed there one time, and in August, and the guy goes, the Leafs are just never going to win a Stanley Cup in my lifetime. And I was like, oh, okay.
They have become what the Red Sox were before 2004. And what the Cubs were before 2016. They really have. It's the strangest fan base in sports, and it's an enormous fan base, and it's a really passionate one. It is, but like the emotional immaturity of that fan base is like nothing I've ever seen. Like the highs and lows when they were up 2-0, they were going to win the Cup, and they lost Game 5 at home. Fire everybody. They go down to Florida, win Game 6. They're going to do it this year. I mean. I could see how it would drive you nuts playing for that team. It has to be unnerving.
It is a long time. I was telling my lady friend, I'm like, they haven't won since 1967. Like, I'm 55 years old. If I was a Maple Leaf fan, I wouldn't have seen a Stanley Cup, and I've seen 5. And she goes, you love saying you've seen 5. And yes, I do. Yes, I do. Well, now, but it just as an American hockey fan, I will just say this from the bottom of my heart. Paul Maurice, please win at least 4 more games, because America cannot sit through the bullshit known as regular season rod.
That's the worst case scenario, is them making it not just for fans but for the league. That would be the worst. They play such a terrible brand of hockey, and I love Jordan Staal and everything he did for the Penguins. But I mean, like when he's not your premier guy, but like when he's your captain and like the guy, I mean, it's just, come on, he's a shutdown center,
Right. No, I mean, from a league standpoint, Carolina would not be good. Let's be honest. It's one of the smallest fan bases in the league for one thing. And they're horrible to watch. Like they're very good. But nobody tunes in to watch that team play. And I know they don't like hearing that. They get a chip on their shoulder, as they should. I understand why they do. But my God, it is painful. And yeah, I mean, from the league standpoint, you'd take Florida Edmonton a rematch of what was a great Stanley Cup final, or Florida Dallas was probably the two best teams on paper, I would say, top to bottom. You'd be okay with that. If Carolina's involved, oh my God, I can't imagine anybody in New York would be too thrilled with that news.
I'm not thrilled, and I love hockey. That's just terrible. I mean, at least we got rid of Winnipeg. Because to me, it felt more and more like Winnipeg was Carolina West, except Freddie Anderson has a little bit more gut. He can possibly win an away game, which is a joke. And you talk about Sullivan, you don't. I mean, please, dear God, it better be Ottinger. Or Trump better just deport, the Hollerback, because I mean that's just a crime.
Oh no, Hellebuck. I mean, yeah, it's gotten to the point now. It's every postseason with this guy, and remember, he was even worse in the first round, and he got bailed out by his team scoring a goal with 1 second left in the third period of Game 7, and 2 goals with the goalie pulled. Otherwise, it'd be an even bigger story about Hellebuck. But Ottinger, who I've always liked, he absolutely needs to be Team USA's goaltender. I don't think there's any doubt about that at this point. Yeah, it's very clear. That Dallas team, I'll tell you what, I just said about Florida how hard it's going to be to beat them 4-7. Well, I would say the same about Dallas. We've been saying it for a while. It's the best roster in hockey, probably. It's just the most talent top to bottom, I would say. There are no weaknesses on that team. They are scary good.
They are my preseason pick. They were your preseason pick. I'm still going to ride them, and you look top to bottom, the talent there is incredible. Some of the guys, they're scratching now. It's ridiculous. But I will say this: I never thought that Jesus and company was going to walk right through Vegas. And I can say Vegas looked uninspired. I can say looked old. I can say I don't know what's wrong with Stone didn't play. I can say Jack Eichel was off his game. I can say Aiden Hill didn't bathe himself in glory. But the bottom line is absolutely Jesus's underlings, his apostles, went in there and did the job. Because they didn't even need Jesus and Leon to really be Jesus and Leon. All of the other guys, the Perry, the Evander Kane, the Frederick, the Henrique, the defense played well. Leonard Skinner came through. When he looked done, it looked like Calvin Pickard was going to ruin it. Pickard got knocked out, and all of a sudden Skinner comes in and looks like Grant Fuhrer. Like, I mean, I like Dallas, but I don't know what to think about that series out west, Josh. Whoever it is going to be an incredibly tough test for Florida.
Yeah, I saw in Vegas that Edmonton's actually favored in the Western Conference Final, which surprised me a little bit. Like, in my mind, I still think of Dallas as being the better team. But that was the scary thing about the Vegas series. See, Vegas probably does as good a job as any team at slowing McDavid and Draisaitl down. Like, I don't think those two guys really like playing against Vegas. They're just so good defensively, so big. There's a hard team to play against. But it was the depth for Edmonton, that very depth that we often make fun of because it's not really all that well of a constructed team, I don't think. And it's been an issue all season. Those are the guys that won that series. And it's not a good matchup for Edmonton, and yet they win it in 5. And Vegas, Vegas never looked right against Minnesota. I don't know what happened with that team in the last month. They certainly were one of the more disappointing teams in the playoffs, I think, given the talent that they have. But Edmonton not only wins convincingly, but after a really tough first-round test against the Kings, they get a few days off now. And that is no small thing this time of year to get 4 or 5 days off, whatever it's going to be. So they will be pretty well rested when they go into game 1 against the Stars. And my God, what a series that's going to be.
You're right about Vegas never looking right, because we were kind of giving all the credit to Minnesota. Like, whoa, whoever thought Minnesota could take them to 7?
Right.
But maybe it was just like Vegas just didn't quite have it this year.
They looked like a team that was fading.
They look slow to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they really did.
Yeah.
But then you looked at Winnipeg, and is it really that Hallenbeck isn't in La La Land when he's at home, or is it the last change that important? Or because Arneal was such a great coach, but how can it look so good at home and so bad on the road? Because you look at the roster, and to me, it's like Carolina. It's like a bunch of some pretty good second lines, except for Cal Connor.
Right.
It seems like Dallas should have dispatched them easier.
Yeah, I think that series went about as long as it could have. It was pretty obvious watching them who the better team was, especially the games in Dallas. And there was certainly some compelling drama. Mark Scheifele, what he did last night, not only to play in that game, but to score a goal like he did, that was some kind of a powerful moment. And I've dealt with him; he's a really good guy.
And to be the guy in the power play in the penalty box.
I know. I was sick to my stomach for Scheifele in that moment to be sitting there in the box. I mean, hasn't the guy been through enough in the last 24 hours? Like, that was just awful. But there was no question who the better team was. That Dallas team, man, I've been saying for a couple of weeks since they beat Colorado, like all of a sudden they just kind of have that look about them. If they were dancing around with the Stanley Cup in 3 or 4 weeks, it would not shock me.
And Miro is playing his regular minutes now, which is huge, because man, is he good. And then if he pairs with Harley, it's like having 5 forwards on the ice. And if you split them, then you got 2 guys playing 45 minutes, and then you only got 15 minutes. And then and Labushkin. How about Cody Ceci? Cody Ceci's pretty damn good. He
is.
And even they have 10 legitimate NHL scoring forwards too.
Yeah,
they got 10 guys that can score. That's what's going to be, I think, tough on Skinner. And it appears that Ekblad is not playing, at least at the beginning, and that's a big loss. I mean, I mean, the Kings choked. I don't know about Vegas, but they're going to need Ekblad if they're going to beat Dallas.
Yeah, well, and Miro being back for Dallas. Man, and listen, nobody's going to shut down McDavid, including him. But the thing about Miro, when he's on the ice for Dallas and when he's playing well, they just always have the puck. And that's the best way to beat McDavid and Draisaitl. Make them play defense, make them work in that zone where they don't want to. And that's what Miro does. He's one of the best players in the league. Nobody talks about him. I don't know that there's a more complete defenseman in hockey than him.
No.
If he's healthy and if he can be himself, that might well be the difference in this series. It's a huge deal that he's back.
He has a lot of Cale Makar in him. He's a lot of one-man breakout.
Yep. Oh, yeah. No, he does. And you need that against Edmonton, too.
Oh, yes. And
the game's at a different speed against them. Like, Edmonton's different than every other team. And you need your defensemen to be able to do things like that against them, to throw them off. And I think the world of Miro, and I think Dallas is a really, really hard team to beat right now.
And the Edmonton Oilers are not known for defensive coverage.
No, they're not.
And getting back.
No.
So talking about someone who can jump into the play and take an odd man rush, is Miro. And I thought Sagan was I thought Sagan looked really good in that series too.
He did. Oh, he can still play. I mean, he's not one of the names that pop up when you're talking about Dallas. Obviously, what Mikko has done this postseason is incredible. But don't forget about guys like Tyler Sagan. I mean, man, he still is going to score big goals. He is still a presence in the offensive zone. That's the thing. You go through all their stars and then say, oh, yeah, they have Tyler Sagan and Jamie Benn. Like, they have all these other guys who can, still hurt you at any time. They're the deepest team in hockey. There's no one else quite like them.
And the other thing is their coach will be 9-0 in Game 7s. But I think the genius move of playing, I'm really usually against 11-7. But okay, you want to play the old, we know how many minutes Mira's going to take, but Mira ends up taking like 30 minutes a game.
Right.
But the brilliance is then you just double shift Rantanen. So he's either playing with the Sheriff, Wyatt Johnson, and Robertson, or he's playing with Granlund and Rupe Hentz. You literally have 2 number 1 lines.
No, that's what I mean.
He played more than any defenseman in that game the other night.
Right. And for a team listen to the final 4 teams left, Edmonton's by far the worst defensively. I mean, by far. It's not even close.
Right.
Just strikes me as a very problematic matchup for the Oilers. I think they only win this series if McDavid just goes crazy, and he may. I mean, listen, I'm not putting that past him, but he'd probably have to have the series of his life to beat them. That's how good I think this Dallas team is.
I think that I've been counting out the Oilers. I picked against them both times so far. I just don't think they're that as talented, but if Corey Perry can play like 2006 Corey Perry,
which he's done,
like he looked pretty good this past series.
Kane's eating up. Frederick played pretty good. All the guys, Connor Brown looked pretty good.
Oh yeah,
they've got a full team effort. I think we said this last week. The guy's coaching his ass off. He's turned into a really good coach.
He has
so far, and I mean. But I have a feeling that this, given with the Oilers' defensive setup, I think Rantanen can have quite a series here. If a couple more hat tricks maybe, or a couple more 4-point periods. But and I see the comments coming in. We will be talking Penguins, everybody. So if you're listening, I know the format's usually Penguins first, then. But we just
people
came
are antsy, Corey. They want to go to bed, but they want to listen first.
I know. They want to hear what Josh.
We're holding everyone hostage. We got Josh just back from his conversation.
Yeah, he just came back from Sweden, talking, rubbing elbows with Dubas, Fleury, McKinnon, Crosby.
Cheap plug for the Athletic. Your article about McKinnon was excellent.
Oh, thanks, Joe.
Yeah. No, it was a great article. If he could come here, right?
McKinnon's like so competitive. You could tell it was like 2 weeks after they had lost to Dallas, and he still wants to punch you if you even bring it up, which I actually like that about him. Like he really, really cares.
Sid had 4 points tonight.
Yeah, he's still okay. He can still play a little bit.
Sid might be he might be on the way for another MVP. A tournament MVP. It's just the thing he does. But before we get into the Penguins talk, because you did talk to Kyle Dubas, you talked to a couple people over there, and we're 1 week closer to finding out who the Penguins' new coach is. But before we get into all of that, we do need to thank Mr. Bill Neofis. I would say Bill Neofis. Yeah, let's see. The Caps are gone, so he's thrilled.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure he doesn't really like regular season rod either.
No, and he's no fan of the Maple Leafs either. So he's actually in a pretty good mood this weekend. I'm certain. And also, so I was just in Sweden for 5 days, and the Penguins play there in November against Nashville. They're there for 2 games in the middle of November in Stockholm. So I've been giving Bill travel tips, since he will be making an appearance in Stockholm to join the Penguins fans there in November. So giving him little tidbits. I'll stay at this hotel. I'll be there in November, and we'll have dinner at this place. It'll be great. So, he is the finest sponsor there is, and he certainly loves the Penguins. So he will be on board in Sweden, and he's always on board for all of your insurance needs. And as we say every week on this podcast, it doesn't matter what insurance needs you have, whatever it is. It can be apartment insurance. It can be car insurance. We can go life insurance. Go down the list. Whatever you need. Bill Neofis and his group of employees, who are just the nicest people you'll ever deal with. They are going to take care of you. They will be patient with you. They will get you the best rates. So you name it, they will help you out. They've been in business since 1960. It's a family-run company. They know what they're doing. So give Bill a call. Tell him we sent you even. Why not? He'll like that. 412-364-3388 or at neofisinsurance.com. Look them up. They will absolutely take care of you.
Thanks, Bill. as always. And I think that would be a great time for us to have our first, or well, not our first, because we did the draft last year, but all three of us at the same place on the road. That let's figure out. Let's get Joe a Sweden gig.
I love Sweden.
Ooh.
I'm
Joe
very,
Joe does like Sweden. I know this for a fact.
yes, I'm pro Sweden. That is for sure.
So Josh, you spent 5 days over in Sweden, like you said. And the Penguins are in the midst of a coaching search. If you have not gone to The Athletic and checked out his work, a great article with Sid talking about how he doesn't want to play manager. And I kind of want to start there before we get into what Dubas had to say.
Sure.
Did you get the vibe from Sid that, he's kind of okay with whoever? Because I know a lot of the Penguin fans are really worried, like we're concerned, make sure it's somebody that Sid likes. Sid likes Sully. We want to make sure he would like Tocchet. We can't get Tocchet now. Do you think Sid is kind of in the zone of like, hey, whoever's going to help us win?
I do. And I had a long chat with the captain a couple of days about this. And I said, well, are you going to have any influence in this decision, Sid? He said, no. I said, why? I said, you are Sidney Crosby. You have, some muscle here to flex. And he looked at me and he said, I really don't care who our next coach is. And he didn't mean literally that he doesn't care. But what he meant was, I don't care if it's a young guy. I don't care if it's an old guy. And I said to him, is it important, that it's somebody with some experience? He said, no. He said, I don't care. I just want to win. And he said it like Sid's always friendly, right? It wasn't unfriendly, but there was an edge to it. And I know from other conversations I've had, he's getting pissed off. Like he's sick of losing. Like I know for a fact he looks at the Capitals and what they did this year, and he said, "Why the hell can't that be us? Like what are we doing here?" And
I said that every week on this show.
Yeah, he's getting frustrated. Like he's getting tired of losing. That's not in his DNA to not be in the playoffs 3 years in a row. So I wouldn't say he's ornery or even edgy. Those words might be too strong, but he's ready for something good to happen, right? He wants to get behind whoever the new coach is. I believe him. I don't think he's having any influence in this at all. This is Kyle Dubas' show, 100%. And Sid will tell you that. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He just wants to know who his coach is and wants to proceed accordingly. But he's sick of losing. It's completely obvious. That's why he's playing at the World Championships. Like he just wants to go win something and be on the winning side because he hasn't done it in a while.
He's going and playing the third graders.
Yeah, it's like whenever you go on the video game and bump it down to rookie level, just to like, you know what, I'm gonna get my ass kicked a little bit.
Yeah, he's playing kickball against the kindergarten class, and he's enjoying it. I think.
Yeah, now. You have your list, but someone I was thinking about, which I would, obviously we didn't get the guy who I think we all wanted, and now to quote Paulie, sorry Rick, now I turn my back on you.
Yeah, it's a really hard thing to see somebody you like that behind the bench of the Flyers.
I haven't
Sully, but this one hurts even more. But I would like it. And then and Q is in SoCal. How about Andrew Burnett?
It's an interesting name.
I thought he did well in Florida, and he's a pro coach. Like I've said here the last month, I want a guy who's used to kids, and I want a guy that can look across the glass and see Tocchet and see Sullivan and every other alpha male. And not be like, oh, what am I supposed to do?
Oh, yeah. And look at the coaches just in this division now. Like I know we like to make fun of regular season Rod, but he's a very good regular season coach. At least he is.
Yes, absolutely.
I think Sheldon Keefe's a pretty good coach. I really do. You've got Sullivan in New York now. You've got Tocchet in Philadelphia. Like you've got some big time coaches in this division.
Patrick Waugh is not a shrinking violet.
So you got to go up against that first and foremost. It's a fascinating decision. I don't think we're going to know for a couple of weeks. I should tell people I do have an article coming out on The Athletic. I think it'll be out at 7 a.m. Tomorrow morning I had a lengthy sit down with Mr. Dubas yesterday, and he kind of got into what it's been like for him being in Sweden the last couple of weeks with Team Canada, and trying to find the right coach for the Penguins. I saw Kyle the other day, and I said, "Hey, I need to talk with you." And he was literally running, and he said, "Let's do it tomorrow, like 4:00 Zoom meeting. I got to interview somebody in like a half an hour." So he's a busy man these days. So I kind of will take the readers behind the scenes a little bit and see what it's been like for him the last few weeks. But one name that has surfaced, and I know for a fact is somebody that the Penguins are very interested in, is Mitch Love, who is an assistant coach with the Washington Capitals. Very successful coach in the minor league level for a few years. He's been with Washington, and we all know what the Capitals have done in the last couple of years. He's 40 years old, so he's a young guy, does have some coaching experience. I can tell you for a fact, I know Kyle likes him. I know the organization is intrigued by him. He's a tough guy. He was a real tough customer in the minor leagues, believes in toughness. And I think Kyle Dubas, we look at Dubas as an analytics guy, a guy who, only cares about skilled hockey players, who brought in the Mitch Marners and the Nylanders of the world. And that's true. But I also know for a fact that Kyle thinks this team needs to get bigger and tougher and more durable. And I think we can all agree with that. And I think when you look at somebody like Mitch Love, he certainly has that background. He's a guy that I really like. We're not going to know for a couple of weeks who the new coach is, but he is certainly high on the list. I can tell you that.
Well, Mr. Dubas, as much as I would hate to see you bring in Mitch Marner, I will piggyback ride Prince Willie into town. Willie's awesome. Willie doesn't choke.
No. You know what? It's funny though, because Matthews obviously choked too. I tweeted out earlier. I said, "Boy, does Austin Matthews look like a guy who might come to Pittsburgh and win a Stanley Cup with Sidney Crosby." Maybe that's King Willie that'll do the Phil Kessel.
I don't think they would get rid of Willie, or I think Tavares is gone, and I think Mitch Marner's. Well, they are gone. They're officially unrestricted free agents.
So Dubas is kind of circling a few. Is there going to be more candidates coming in, or?
Yeah, there are, and he's still busy. In fact, he told me, there are still people. This was as of about 36 hours ago, I guess, when we talked. There were still people in the playoffs, assistant coaches presumably, that were interested in the job that he still needed to speak with, and there were still a couple of other AHL guys that he wanted to speak with as well. So he's basically doing the first round of interviews from Sweden on Zoom, and he's going to, guys are, whoever it's determined are in the second round of interviews, probably the final 4 or 5, I would guess. They'll be coming to Pittsburgh next week to meet with Kyle, and at that point, he will make a decision probably by the end of the month. We're getting there. He certainly seems pleased with the progress that he made. And Joe, you mentioned Tocchet. I should bring him up. There was some interest from the Penguins in Rick Tocchet, and there was also mutual interest. We all know Rick was intrigued by coaching the Penguins. From what I've been told, it was really very similar with the Sully situation. Sully didn't want to rebuild. Sully wanted to win right now. And I think Rick felt the same way. Now, I know it's easy to look at Philly and say, well, they're not ready to win. But they've been in the rebuilding mode for longer than the Penguins have, too. And I suspect they're going to be very aggressive in free agency this summer. And so I just felt like for Rick and the Penguins, the timing probably wasn't right.
Well, who I was really impressed with, and a super nice guy, Florida Panthers assistant Jamie Compon, and he's been around for like 30 years. We interviewed him on Puckoff. Yeah. He wants to be the Penguins coach because he's the leader of men.
That's what you need.
He was around Detroit forever. He had so many great stories. So, yeah, I just want a guy who's from the NHL, or I mean, if the guy Love, if he's a tough guy and was played in Hershey for all those years and won, Hershey's like almost
as an NHL team, right?
Yes, exactly. Like that's okay. I just no college, no junior guys. That's all.
And Love, presumably. I mean, listen, he's been with that Washington team now, and they've had this incredible turnaround the last couple of seasons. From what I have heard, He receives a lot of credit for that in Washington. This is a really good coach, a guy who really knows how to coach defense first and foremost, and that should be music to Penguins fans' ears because it's their biggest problem. Let's be honest.
Did he decide to scratch Lars Eller? Was that his?
That's a good question.
I actually have I don't know how much you talk Canadian because it's a good point. Not a good point. I pat myself on the back now for a question I haven't even asked yet. I always get squirrely after 11:30 on any podcast, and I'm a late night guy. But it's like because I'm just used to telling dick jokes this late, and I just analyze them.
Hey, by the way,
I'm sober. That's the other problem. I should be drinking.
I got to jump in, Joe. I was telling you guys before we went on the air, like I ended up having a 24-hour layover in Iceland. They have something in Iceland called the Penis Museum, which I did not have time to visit, but I'm sure it's wonderful. It's actually called the Penis Museum. It's a real thing. So you mentioned dick jokes. I had to.
So it just I don't know if you asked Dubas about anything containing around Team Canada, but Connor Bedard took the BS way out, and he's I'm going to stay back home and work on my game or work on off ice or whatever. Kind of when a comedian's like, "Are you? How much you're on stage?" Like, no, I'm doing a lot of writing. That just means you're being lazy and being a baby.
That's right.
So he doesn't go to learn how to be a winner with Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon. He stays in Chicago or wherever he's at because you know who went over there? Macklin Celebrini went over there.
Yeah,
and Macklin Celebrini's going to be on the Olympic team next year.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I spoke with Celebrini a few days ago.
He's a stud, man.
Not only is he a great, and he's playing on Sid's line a lot of this tournament. They look great together. He is a really nice kid, and he is so mature. I mean, this is like an 18-year-old kid. I talked to him for 2 minutes. I was blown away. Like, it was like when Sid was that age. He's that mature, just that comfortable in his own skin. And by all accounts, like Sid loves him. Like, he works his tail off. Like, he's just a relentless working kid. And I think it's a terrible look for Bedard that he is not there.
That's all I want to say.
He clearly regressed in his second season. Not saying he's not a great talent. He is. But wouldn't it do you some good to go pick Sidney Crosby's brain for a couple of weeks? Like, what are we doing here? Like, it was just stunning to me. And I did not ask Dubas about it. I probably should have. I can't believe Bedard did not go. And Celebrini, I asked him about it. He was like, why wouldn't I be here? Like, it was a total no-brainer to him, as it should be. If I were, picking one guy to start a franchise with, I would take Celebrini in a heartbeat, and I would do that based on just what I saw on the ice. But after talking with him for 5 minutes and seeing some of the immaturity that I think we've seen from Bedard, especially in the last year, it's a no-brainer.
It's literally like, hey, Chappelle and Burr want to take you on the road. No, I'm going to stay home and do some open mics, really work on my act.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's just at least like make up an injury or something. There's something to be said for that. But I mean, you got 37-year-old Sidney Crosby there. You got Nathan McKinnon, who's depressed after, losing in the first round. He shows up and he's leading the tournament in goals. Like if those guys are going to go, like, you're 19, 20 years old. What are you doing? You have something better to do in May? Like, I don't think so. It's a terrible look. And good for Celebrini. That kid can play. Wow. I mean, honestly, other than Sid and McKinnon, he's been their best player. He is impressive in every way.
I thought he'd make the Olympic team even if he didn't go to this. Just to how good he was in the regular season. How did the Americans look?
No, well, they're in Denmark, so I didn't see them in person. I was only.
It's a split squad.
Yeah, they've got half of the teams are playing in Denmark, the other half in Stockholm.
That's ridiculous.
I opted that seeing Sidney Crosby in the Flower and Kyle Dubas was a little bit more important for my necessities. But Team USA has just been okay. They're not really having a great tournament. It's also not a great roster that they sent over. And the Euros care more about this tournament. I mean, I saw that being in Stockholm, just seeing the Latvian fans celebrate in the parking lot for 5 minutes after a game. Like, these people are hardcore. This tournament means a lot to them. It's just not the same for the North
Do you think
Americans.
it's like on the level of, I mean, I don't think not on the level of Stanley Cup, but like, what would you compare it to in like North American sports?
Oh God, I don't even know how to, but I mean, it's like, I don't know. I felt like I was surrounded by like English Premier Soccer fans. Like, it's that kind of importance to them. Like, for the other countries, especially the countries that, might be viewed as underdogs, whether it be Austria, Latvia, teams like that. Like, man, people over there are really, really into this tournament. In North America, we pay attention to it, right? But it's just not that. It's just a B tournament.
Well, it's been known. It still may be, but for a lot, I mean, now that I think the Stanley Cup is more global, but
Yes.
for a long time, European players and Russians cared more about the World Championships than the Stanley Cup.
Oh, for sure. No, some I don't want to say some still do. Maybe a few do. And no, that certainly could be. That they always have. It's just a huge deal to them. So, yeah, it's been very interesting when you're over in Europe. Like, it's the top story on every sports report. Is this they're going crazy for having Crosby and Fleury over there alone. Is I can't tell you what a big deal it is in Sweden. They're getting like Beatles treatment over there right now. So, because usually you don't always get the biggest names in that tournament because the biggest names are usually trying to win the Stanley Cup. So it's been an interesting thing to see.
Yeah, if anyone wants to see the history of how important that is, watch the great 30 for 30, it's revisiting 1980 Miracle on Ice, but they look at it from the Russian perspective. Have you ever watched that before?
Oh yeah,
Phenomenal documentary, and of course you guys watched it. Why would I ask you? But what they show there too is in between the Olympic years. That's when the first time it really hit for me. Like, oh my god, like this means a ton to them. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like the KHL or something like that. It was just, and it's good hockey. So I'm kind of getting more and more sold on maybe trying to take a trip out and go check that out sometime. But hearing now that the Latvia fans are hanging out in the parking lot, I think I can make some Latvian friends real quick.
I mean, I walked through the parking lot and they were smoking a lot of different things. I mean, I saw cigarettes, I saw joints. I don't know what else there was, but they were like, there was not a sober person in that bunch. Put it that way.
When I was at the Olympics, it was. I mean, of course, I go the 1 year the pros don't go. They didn't want to go to Korea, but I did see the American ladies win in the shootout. Granado and Kessel. It was great. But it was kind of like winning the JV championship. But the amount of alcohol consumed between hockey fans in general, but then you had the Russians, the Czechs, the Canadians, the Swedes, the Americans. They literally the first day of the tournament, I didn't think they understood what was going on because it's Korea. And not. I mean, they're great people, and the food was fantastic. But I don't think they really understood. Oh, I think they maybe thought it was going to be like the figure skating going up. And after that, they just had people just selling cases in the arena, and you could just bring a case back to your seat. It was just the greatest, and all the Russian fans were dressed up like as czars. And there was a McDonald's in the Olympic Village or whatever, not the Olympic Village, but where the fans could be. So they'd all just be going around just eating Big Macs like the greatest, just hammered, walking around holding Big Macs like, yay.
Oh yeah. No, it was you guys remember the movie Euro Trip? It reminded me of Euro Trip when like they got on the bus with the Man U fans, I think it was like that. That's how these fans were. And the Austrians were great too. They played Canada and they actually went up 1-0 in that game. They scored on a breakaway early on Fleury. And they had all their fans right beyond Fleury. They were going absolutely nuts, like chanting things at him. And he kept like cocking his head at them, like looking at them like he was confused. I asked him afterwards, I said, what were they yelling at you? He goes, oh, shit, I don't know. It was nasty stuff, so I just look at them. I just give them a look, I squirt my bottle of water at them. Like, well, you do what you got to do, Flower. But and I should mention, by the way, just being over there and getting to see Fleury play in some of his final hockey games ever, man, oh man, what a fun experience that was. And he is enjoying himself so much He told me he just wanted to play with Sid again more than anything. And I have a story coming on that later in the week for The Athletic, by the way. And, getting to talk with those two, they are just so happy to get one last chance to play together. They're so close, and always fun being around the Flower. He's the only goalie that in recent years, certainly, that is like just has star power. Like it's worth watching a game if he's playing, just because he's going to entertain you in so many different ways. And after all these years, he's still got it.
Well,
And it was going to be 2 AHL guys in Flower, but then Bennington joined the party, right?
Yes.
So I wonder, are they going to give Flower the nod like in the gold medal game, or are they going to go Bennington?
I would guess Bennington probably, given that he just won the Four Nations and he might be the favorite for the Olympics. I don't know if they want to slight him like that. It's a good question, though.
Speaking of, we should get Staggy in because we had the Murray Flurry. Mr. Murray made an appearance.
He did
in Game 5, and I was so pissed that he gave one up. It'd have been so great if he slammed the door. It was just great to see him out there.
It is. Listen, with what he's been through with the hip surgeries and everything. I don't know what the future is for him at the NHL level, but he's got a lot of tenacity. There is not a worse injury for a goaltender than a hip injury.
And and he had a pretty good season. They brought him up. And he beat out what's his name, the Hilderbeest, to be in the 3-hole.
He did.
There's been so much bad goaltending. You can't tell me a guy that has 2 Stanley Cups on his resume can't take Casey DeSmith's spot somewhere.
Yeah, he's got to be a backup if he. And what was the injury again? So it's hip injury, but Josh, you talked about it a handful of months ago with him, and it was bothering him like way beyond. You talked to him one time, and he said, "Oh yeah, it was a problem for a while."
Both of his hips. I think Murray's had surgery on both hips now, and I ran into him. The Penguin. It was actually Dubas' first game in Toronto, which was season before last. His first with the Penguins. They got killed on a Saturday night, like 7-0 or something, right before Christmas. And I ran into Murray in the press box after the first period, and we talked for about 20 minutes. And I really like Matt. He's a good guy, and he said to me, he said, "Yeah, these hips have been bothering me for a long time." And I said, "Well, how long have they been bothering you for?" He said, 2015.
Ooh.
Like, whoa. Like, okay. And he's not the kind of guy to make up something like that. So this is a guy who, won you 2 Stanley Cups when I don't think even then he was 100%. When people say, "Well, whatever happened to Matt Murray? It must have been his dad dying or this or that." Well, I suspect more than anything it was his health. I just don't, if you're a goalie with sore hips, that's a real freaking problem. That's the worst injury a goalie can have, literally.
It may have helped him, though, because he was just steady. He never moved. He was always in position.
When he was at his best, that's true.
Yeah. That's why somebody loved him. The guy doesn't move. He's in the same spot every time. It's great.
Yeah, you knew what you were getting. That's true. So I'm glad he's still around. I don't know if he's ever going to land steady NHL work again, but I hope he does. And I hope whether he does or he doesn't, I hope Penguins fans always give him the respect he deserves.
Hey, his name should be in the Ring of Honor as far as I'm concerned. He's a 2-time Stanley Cup winner.
Yeah. And it was not easy being the man to follow Marc-Andre Fleury, who was one of the 5 most beloved players in franchise history. As Murray has told me, he said, "I don't have his personality because nobody does." He said, "I knew I was never going to be as popular in Pittsburgh as Fleury. I just had to be myself." And Matt did okay in Pittsburgh. I hear people say, "Well, he was a good goalie on great teams." Well, okay, you can say that if you want, but the numbers speak for themselves. Hey, those 2 postseasons, he was great.
There's a lot of good goalies on great teams that don't have 2 Stanley Cups.
That's right.
All hail Matt Murray.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Speaking of favorite Penguins, fan favorites, and this is way off topic, but hey, why not?
I love it.
I'm not the biggest Pearl Jam fan. I can name about 4 or 5 Seattle bands I like more than Pearl Jam. But the poster of Show 1 with the skeleton at the Pearl Jam concert, if you haven't seen it, fans, friends, listeners, Josh, Corey, Google it.
Not.
It's
Was it
amazing.
the
It's
one at
amazing.
PPG?
The first night. The second night, tonight's show was in the arena. It was it's a little bit more like art, and it's not as like, wow, it's super cool, but it's kind of like, it's cool. Second show, cool. But then they made jerseys, hockey jerseys, and they gave the number 25. I understand it's 2025, but you don't take Artie's number.
That's right.
Period.
He's a
That's
huge
it.
Pearl
That's
Jam
it.
fan.
Sorry, Eddie. I'm glad you saved museums. I'm glad you save animals, and you're a nice guy. You don't take Artie's number in Pittsburgh. You don't.
Has
I don't disagree.
Has anyone worn that since? I don't think so.
Max Talbot.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I
But no, other than him, I can't think of anybody that. Like,
I hate to say it, but I think the big dog Eric Tangradi wore. Did he wear 25?
I think he was 26.
Oh, he was 26. That's right. I think you're right.
He wouldn't remember you
Not
saying it
Max
anyway.
Talbot, Jesus Christ.
We need to get Seth Rohrabaugh on. Seth is the number king. I might have to text Seth to ask him. Seth will send me like some big spreadsheet of everybody who ever wore number 25.
I'd love to see the spreadsheets him and Bob Grove have.
Oh, God.
Am I wrong though am I wrong to be that, as critical? I mean, if AC/DC did it, I'd be happy that it was an AC/DC jersey and a Penguin uniform, but it's Artie.
I'm an Artie guy, so I hear you.
Unless Artie's a huge Pearl Jam fan that I don't know about, then, which is possible because, that's
hey, I'm not against the band. I'm just like, but I'll tell you, the first poster, the one they put out on Friday, Kevin Ackland's holding it on social media. It's badass. I wish I liked Pearl. I might even get it. I might even get that just because I love the poster so much, or the T-shirt of it. Badass.
Yeah, no, I is it the one with the? I'm like Googling it as we're talking. Is it the one with the skeleton in the skating?
Yeah, there's one that's just a big skeleton head in the Penguin uniform. The other one is like there's hockey being played in the arena.
Okay. I gotta dig deeper, but
all right, I didn't mean to throw everybody off.
No, you're good.
No, I appreciate that.
We're always that I couldn't at midnight. I couldn't recall that Max Talbot wore 25. Jesus Lord.
both players that ended up in Philadelphia.
I saw
but for Artie was just a cup of coffee. I think he got a fever and came home.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Tocchet just for a second before I want to do the predictions on the conference finals. So we all really wanted Tocchet, but I mean, Josh, have you mentioned? I think I heard you haven't talked to him since he took the job. Like any contact with him right before that or indication it was going to happen?
I talked to Rick a couple of weeks ago after he officially left Vancouver. I really just wished him luck and, whatever. I'm not surprised that he ended up in Philly. We always knew the Flyers wanted him, and by all accounts, they gave him a ton of money, probably an offer he could not refuse. I can tell you, I think I mentioned this last week as well, the Seattle Kraken made quite a push for him. Ron Francis, of course, calling the shots there. He and Rick are old friends. Rick's son lives in Seattle, so there was, some family reasons why he might want to be there. Quick jump down the road from Vancouver, so he's pretty familiar with the Pacific Northwest already. I don't doubt that he thought about it, but I just think his heart was in Philly. I know that hurts Joe to say that, but Rick is really the only guy I know of who to this day is just wildly popular in both cities. But he's a former Flyers captain, and he is always welcome there, and they're giving him a ton of money. So it's not shocking. I can't wish him too much success being in Philadelphia, but it's Rick and we all love him. It's just this was worst case scenario, and we knew it was possible.
Yeah, you knew it was going to happen. I mean, I still cherish whenever he has the Penguins credit card on those commercials. There's one of every 3 times it's like the Flyer credit card, but most of the time it was the Penguin credit card. Yeah, I wish him no luck, and I hope he gets canned and we see him on TNT. Sorry, Rick, I love you.
Well, we are,
And he was traded though for my grandmother's favorite Penguin of all time, even over Mario, and probably the only other guy loved in both cities, that being the Wrecking Ball.
That's right,
Mark Recchi.
That is true. Those probably are the 2 guys. And by the way, I have to look up the date. I think we are around 1 week or so away from the 50th anniversary of the last time the Flyers won the Cup. So it's been a long time. We talk about the Leafs not winning it since 1967. Flyers haven't since 1975. And you look at the roster, that's not a Stanley Cup team. That's probably not even a playoff team. I think Rick's a hell of a coach, but he has his work cut out for him in Philly. That's just not a great situation right now.
We're only like 5 years, maybe 6. It's 6 at the most. 5 years probably away from the Flyers no longer being on the Cup, because they're on the top ring right now. Right. That will get removed in about 5 years, and you can go visit the Stanley Cup and not have danger of touching the Philadelphia Flyers name.
I think it's actually quicker than that, Corey. I think it's like 3 years away, because of the way the timing is.
How many spaces are left on the ring?
Yeah, I think it's sooner than that, actually.
Me and my brother have been talking about this for like 15 years. We're like, oh, could you imagine? And then like every time it gets closer, we're like, oh my god, this might happen. So I want to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame and see the Stanley Cup and try to find the Flyers on it. I mean, we could probably do a week's worth of content just based on that. But yeah, it's really hard to see Tocchet go and like talking about Murray replacing Fleury. Mark Recchi was so beloved by Penguins fans. He was one of our own. The Wrecking Ball. He played with so much energy. So many people loved him, and it's like that had to have been a really hard trade to win anybody over. And then Rick Tocchet comes in with his broken jaw and is just lighting the lamp. And then the rest is history. So,
and here's how little Mark Recchi wanted to go to Philadelphia in 1992. Flyers didn't even make the playoffs in 92 after that trade. Penguins, of course, went on to win the Cup again. Phil Bourque actually told me this story that during the spring of 92, when the Penguins were in their second straight Cup run, Mark Recchi was still coming to games in Pittsburgh and sitting like in the friends and family section at the Igloo that spring. So those were like still his guys, and he still wanted to be there to support them, even though he was an employee of the Philadelphia Flyers at that point.
I'm surprised Bobby Clark didn't poison his lunch.
I would imagine Bobby didn't know about it, or maybe he was too busy trying to get guys with concussions to go out and play. So
yeah. Well, before we go, let's see if we have any Stone Cold lead pipe hardcore locks. Whoa. I got to go back and look and see how we did in the second round. But the first round we were 50-50. We got the Stars and the Jets. That's starting Wednesday. Stars obviously.
Oilers.
Yeah. What did I say? Jets. Jesus, it's after midnight. So, Stars versus Oilers starting on Wednesday. I got the date right. I could see this. I could see the Oilers winning in 7. I could see Dallas winning in 7. I could see Dallas winning in 5. Just curious what you guys think.
Yeah, I mean, listen. You bet against McDavid at your own peril, because he again is doing special things this postseason. I just think Dallas is better. So I will pick Dallas in 6. I just think top to bottom they're the better team. I just think Edmonton is still so flawed in some ways, and I think that will come back to bite them ultimately. But I can't wait to watch this series. This is going to be great hockey.
Yes, this is the series of the two that I really want to see. I'm going to say Dallas in 7. I don't see Skinner holding up for 7 games, and I guess Picard is out. It's going to be a hell of a series, though.
Edmonton's not like anyone else. I mean, it's just difficult to predict anytime they're involved because they got the two best players in the league right now, and
And
that,
the
that makes
board.
them a wild card. Yeah,
Pete DeBoer's going to be 10-0 in game sevens.
might be.
But Maurice, I believe, is 5-0. So
Yeah, he's never lost either. How about that?
Yeah.
And I'm not doing this to be a contrarian, I swear. The thing that scared me the most in the second round for the Oilers is somebody who would probably prefer them out of all the maybe the Canes. I wouldn't want to see it win it, but I don't know. Them having like you said, Jesus having his apostles starting to perform. That's a huge problem if that continues. I don't know.
I said on my skate today, I said, well, Dallas is going to have their come to Jesus moment now Wednesday night.
Some people tweeting the other day, we could have 3 or 4 Canadian teams in the conference final. Now all of a sudden there's only one left, and it's the Oilers.
So with that being said, I'm gonna go with Dallas in 6 because I just think Dallas is that good.
You almost had the Leafs though, Corey.
I was thinking about
it. You had to be happy when you're up 2-0 and then 3-1 in the third, in the game 3.
My FanDuel, it was like, go ahead, cash out. We'll give you 2/3 of your winnings, and I was like, no, I'm holding on to this.
Oh, you didn't take the cash out, huh?
No, I did not take the cash out. But
I was thinking about you, Corey, in game 3. I said, God damn, Corey, Corey's showing off now, picking the Leafs. It's the Leafs' time. No, it's not.
Well, It was such a sensible thing to say because that's always the second. You were so dead on.
Yes.
That just goes to prove how great a team the Florida Panthers are.
They're badass. People always crap out in the second round on their third go round, and they somehow hung on. I'm not hung on. Jesus, they drove the Zamboni through the through the doors. Yeah, I thought I was riding high there with that Maple Leafs pick. The good news was I bet the house on Dallas on their series. I was just like, the numbers, they weren't favored. They were favored, so they weren't giving you huge numbers, but it wasn't like it was something like -130 to take Dallas, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna push some chips into the middle of the table there on that one.
When they survived Colorado, you kind of thought, boy, it might be their year. It would not shock you.
Yeah. So we all have Dallas across the board. Now out east, we've got the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. There's what we want to happen, and there's what we think will happen. I'll just throw this out there to you guys because we've talked regular season Rod to death, but can he kind of put this team into a meat grinder that maybe they finally like putter out and lose it?
Well, listen, they've been very good through 2 rounds. They're what, 8-2, I guess, right? Yeah. Through a couple of 5-game wins. They're impressive. They've been rested. And they're a lot more rested, I should say, than the Panthers, and that is a big deal. And I will say, even though a Carolina-Dallas Stanley Cup final would be a ratings disaster, it would be funny seeing Mikko Rantanen play against Carolina in the final. I will say that. With all that said, I will not pick against the Florida Panthers. I just think they're better. They might be exhausted. That's the one problem with this series. You wonder how much gas is in the tank, because I think it took pretty much everything they had to beat Toronto. I just think they're better than Carolina, though, Joe. I'm not going to pick against them. I'll pick Florida in 6.
Yeah, and I think Carolina has definitely had the easiest path to the Final Four. And we didn't even talk about Ovi. I mean, he looked as dead as he did last year's playoffs.
Yeah, he was out of gas.
And I think just, Ovi breaking the record was such a emotional high. It was almost like the teams that either go to Europe or the teams that do. It was like they had a 3-month-long HBO 24/7 leading up to, just the media coverage. It seemed like it had to be a come down.
Yes.
To get to the playoffs. And it just, they weren't clicking anymore. I just don't think Carolina. I think maybe the young guys on the Capitals, you can get in their face and you can do whatever you do as a Rod Brindamore coach team, you're not going to psych out or get in the face of Bennett and Kachuk.
No.
And Lundell and Barkov, and the names have been changed to protect the innocent. Rod Brindamore, you're not scaring Maurice. And, they'll just run over Anderson and take on that Russian guy if Anderson has 2 good games.
That's right.
I don't see Carolina barely scored on Washington. They're not gonna Bobo's playing excellent. I got Florida in 5.
Ooh, and that's the biggest deal maybe for Florida that nobody's talking about. Bobrovsky wasn't great in the first round. He wasn't good at all in the first couple of games against Toronto. He's found his game. And when he's locked in, good luck beating them. It's almost impossible.
I mean, Toronto has 5 or 6, 7. You can't. They have I'd say they have 7 legitimate goal scorers.
Oh yeah.
What's Carolina have 4?
Maybe. I mean, yeah, producing offense will be a problem for them in this series. I do believe that.
Now, this time I will be the contrarian and not, play the game. I'm picking the Canes in 6. I'll just throw that out there to start. The reason behind it is not because Florida's the better team, clearly. But I think for an exhausted team, and that's what you're kind of fearing if you're Florida, is how tired your team is going to be going for this the 3rd time. It's not the intimidation factor with Carolina. It's not like they can, because they're not going to intimidate them. It's going through that meat grinder, having to fight for every inch of ice, against a team like that. And I'm not saying they're the Devils of the 90s, but teams got exhausted by those types of teams. Like if you have to fight for every inch just to get out of your zone, it could become frustrating. So I'm saying Canes in 6, not because they're better, just because if Florida is going to give out because of running out of gas, it would be this series. If they make it to the final, then all bets are off, and we'll see what happens.
No, that's fair. If Florida loses this series, I think it will be because they didn't put away Toronto in 6. And they had to go back to Toronto and then play again 48 hours later in game 1. That's a tough turnaround. There's no break at all for a team that probably could have used it, even though they did get a rest after the Tampa series. So they may have hurt themselves there for sure. And Carolina's obviously playing well. And you're right, they're a pain in the ass to play against. So nobody really enjoys playing against Carolina. God knows nobody likes watching them play hockey. We all know that. It's going to be really low-scoring hockey, if I had to guess. That's how Carolina plays. Florida is very comfortable in that kind of a game. I don't see a lot of goals being scored in this series. I see a lot of overtime games, close hockey games. But when it comes down to crunch time, I just side with Florida. I would not want to play them in an overtime or in a close game. They're just wired to
You're
win.
almost talking me out of my pick of Canes and 6.
Oh, no, don't do that.
And I will tell you this: if it goes to 7, then it's Florida. They have to win in 6.
Well, I think Josh makes an excellent point, though. It's like they're, the Devils had so many defensemen injured and no Jack Hughes.
Yep.
Capitals, their defense is okay. It's not a great defense, and young guys. Florida's going to be able to get the puck out against that forecheck. Maurice is an excellent coach. They're not going to be able to do to Florida what they've done to. They're not going to smother the Florida Panthers. Ekblad, Seth Jones, those guys. They're not. I mean, they're just made differently.
Yes.
So that's what I would go heavy on Florida. I just don't see. I think Florida's in a collision course. I think they've gotten this far now.
And by the way, I have to say, I would love to see a Florida-Dallas series. I just think that would be 2 heavyweights going. That would be big boy hockey. Oh man! But it would be entertaining too. That's kind of the series I would love to see. I think that would be compelling stuff.
Right, because but just to get back to the Carolina, they love winning these. They love what happened a lot. They're close games. Devils made a mistake. Close game. Capitals made a mistake. Florida, lives for that stuff. Florida, like, yeah, wang, it can be nothing to the third. We don't care.
That's right.
You're gonna make the mistake, Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Florida's the most mentally tough team in the league. They absolutely are.
Now all of a sudden you're talking me into going against my pick, but now I'm thinking, is this going to be the 09 Hurricanes that just get swept in the conference final and the doormat on the way to the Stanley Cup?
I would love to see the Stars. I really would. But how about Jesus coming back again to the finals, trying to take out Florida again? I mean,
it could be his. Not that they're like the Red Wings, but it could be the Sid going back and slaying the dragon.
Could be, and I wouldn't mind seeing that series again either. That would be really compelling theater, in my opinion. I think Carolina is the only thing that really screws up an interesting Cup final because nobody wants to see them play, whether they like it or not, whether their fans like it or not.
Watch.
Hey, they completely do, because I mean, every other series had juice.
Yes, yeah.
I couldn't wait to watch these last three nights of hockey.
Yeah. There's just nothing fun about them.
Yeah, when you tuned in, it had the vibe of like an ACC basketball game in like middle of February. That wasn't like Duke or North Carolina. Like it was like Pitt versus I don't know NC State or some junk like that or whatever. It just I don't know. It did not have good vibes there. I did not enjoy.
Do we have any good fan questions or anything? Do we have any good fan things?
The only
I love getting the fans involved.
Fan question was will Erik Karlsson be on the team next season to play in Sweden?
That's a very fair question, and I actually did not get into that subject too thoroughly with Mr. Dubas during our chat. I think there's a chance he will trade Karlsson this summer. I've thought that for a while. If you're asking me right now, is Erik Karlsson on the team next season? I'd probably say yes, just because I think trading him is a really tricky thing and a lot of money would need to be retained. And I don't think Kyle is real big on retaining money. So I'll guess he's on the team next year. Sorry for being on the fence. It wouldn't shock me if he's not, though. I don't think Kyle is against trading him. I just don't know how easy it is to trade him. So it's really a 50-50 deal.
As we are inching closer to summer programming, I do have a question, Josh. And maybe the answer is Sully leaving, but is that the biggest change that's going to happen to this team? What is the biggest change you see happening? Or was that it?
Probably is Sully. I don't think the massive changes take place until next summer. Listen, teams are going to be calling about Raquel and Rust. I guarantee you they are. I don't think they'll be traded this summer. I don't know that they will be at all. My sense is Rust would not be really under any circumstances. Raquel, we will see. But yeah, it doesn't get much bigger than Sullivan in the situation with him. For those looking for big trades this summer, like there will be trade or two, sure. I don't think Evgeny Malkin's going anywhere. I don't think Crystal Tang's going anywhere. I know Sidney Crosby's not going anywhere. Karlsson, it's conceivable for sure. I wouldn't necessarily bet on it, but it still could happen. But no, I mean, Mike Sullivan being gone and the Penguins looking for a new coach. You're not going to get much bigger than that when you're talking about a guy who has won 2 cups and was here for a decade.
So there's no Matthew Nyes offer sheet. There's no Dubas. I know he'd have to drive his sports car over Bill Guerin's dead body, but not like here's $90 million for 5 seasons. Kirill Kaprizov. There's not going to be no just huge swing for any.
I'd be surprised. Just in conversations I've had with Dubas, I really think the big swings are coming next summer. That doesn't mean he won't sign people or make moves that get your attention this offseason. I'm sure he will. I really think he's waiting for Evgeny Malkin to be off the books and a couple of other guys to be off the books, at which point you will probably see him get really aggressive a year from now, because at that point, they're going to know if Miroshov is ready. Harrison Brunick should be ready to contribute immediately. McGroarty and Koivunen will be more, set in stone in the lineup. You'll have a first-round pick or two already in the system at that point. So I really think a year from now, Kyle knows what areas he will need to isolate on, and then you'll see him spend a lot of money and get really aggressive at that point.
I just have a point of contention with that theory. Is Gino's only making 6.1. It's not like we're getting Marner and Tavares off the books.
Yeah.
No, because I did a little research here, or someone else did, and I took it. But Gino, 2 years ago, 0.82 point per game. Last year, down a little, 0.74. Now, not Hall of Famer numbers, but very reasonable second line $6 million numbers.
And he didn't have any good wingers to play with either.
Yeah,
So you mentioned.
That's what I think that's what kickstarts this team into. If they're going to be a playoff team next year, then it's got to be the young guys. There's got to be a handful of young guys that come in, and maybe Brunick is ready faster than we thought. Maybe Miroshov is ready faster than we thought. Those are the types of things, in my opinion, that have to happen for them to be competitive next year.
I agree with you, but I think we can, if Raquel and Russ stay, and God hope Rusty stays and Raquel stays, we counted 6 legitimate top 6 wingers. The next phase, who knows what old defensemen that don't like playing defense are going to be here and who are not. Brunicki seems like they're not ready to push him ahead, but I think Pickering's ready and a few other guys might be ready. The real trick, the real key would be to get Achari and Hayes and everybody else who's here on the early retirement plan, the F out of Pittsburgh, and look at I guess I'm still pissed that we didn't get Lundberg. How did Ryan Lundberg go to Calgary, not to Pittsburgh? Like, those are the guys we need. We need those guys. The 1.75, the 1.5 million guys that are dogs on the bone. The ones that Maurice wants on his team.
And that's a great point.
That's what we lack.
You're right, and that's a great point about Achari and Hayes as well. And that's another, like, how are you going to get rid of those guys? That's the problem. And if you can't get rid of those guys, and I keep going back to the summer of 26, it's not just Malkin off the books. It's those two off the books. All of a sudden, that's $12 million extra money to play with. And there are a couple of other guys that come off the books at that point as well. You could argue that the biggest thing Kyle can do this summer is getting rid of a couple of big contracts. It won't be easy.
No. You know what? How nice of a condo you can get on your salary in Wilkes-Barre.
Yeah,
that's what you do. I'm sorry. That's what you do. I mean, Roboda Island. I know Dubas knows that from the Toronto organization. Barry guys,
send them down. Let them buy the steaks for all the whole team. They can buy every dinner down there. It's going to be a lot cheaper than just feeding themselves up in the big city. I really would love to see him luck out in the LTIR lottery, and not from Sidney Crosby. Anybody with the big guys, but there's a select few if they could.
Here's the thing, though, Corey. It's not that Achari and Hayes break the bank. It's just that they're in the way of somebody who gives a damn.
Yep. Yeah.
They're just horrible. You could not give a damn, but still not be as bad as they are. So you add it all up.
In Sully, I love you, but Achari, blocking shots is not a skill. Anyone can stand in the way and get hit by a puck. That's not a reason to get a sweater every night. Because you're dumb enough to get hit by a puck.
And those two guys will be even slower next year. And it's
and that's my point. That's why my little silver lining of losing Sully is that, you know what? He really valued some of that dumb stuff over just getting a young guy in there. So boy, we're actually not going to be really that starving for summer programming. Maybe in August, we'll start to run out a little bit, but good Lord.
Yeah, the next few weeks are going to be really interesting.
This team has given you, Josh, it's made your summer work pretty easy for you. You've got plenty of articles.
I mean, so the draft is only 5 or 6 weeks away. And I know how excited people get for the draft. The Penguins are going to have at least one high pick, maybe two. And that's also when all the trades roll in. And then free agency day a few days later. No, that's like a very important part of the season for hockey fans. I know how it is. So the articles will be aplenty. We might even do an extra podcast or two coming up when we get to around the draft and free agency. In fact, I'm sure we will. So yes, there's, like I always say about the Penguins, they're not always good, but they're never boring. And so there's always all kinds of stuff to write.
I just thought about what we should do is during free agency, how like we did during the trade deadline, like doing it live as it goes through. And then Josh, you'd have to take a phone call and come back. Joe, I'll prepare out a legit like interview of like stand-up comedy background stuff. Because I feel like that'd be fun to get into like a little bit. Like we could talk about things that we see coming up, but like I could throw in a question of like, what was the best open mic you ever did or something like that.
Oh my God. These Penguin fans just want to hear about the Penguins, Corey. They don't give a damn about my fledgling comedy career.
You say that, but they show up to your shows with their Penguin jersey on, so I don't think they care about.
I know. I believe. Well, you know what? I'll answer any question as long as it's not. What do you think of the Penguins getting Mitch Marner? As long as I don't have to answer that question.
Well, by the way,
I should a stream of questions. Like the first 15 questions were Mitch Marner to the Penguins.
You're kidding.
I should say this, Joe. I would be stunned if they signed Mitch Marner this summer. I think it's just very, very unlikely. And remember, one of the reasons Sully left, he didn't think there was enough urgency in trying to win right now with Kyle's plan. So why on earth would Kyle's plan include getting Mitch Marner this summer, right?
There's only one UFA worse than Mitch Marner.
Who's that?
Oh, he's up in Ottawa.
Are you talking about Claude?
Fraud.
Oh.
Fraud.
I don't think you have to worry about that either.
Thank God. Thank God. Well, that'll do it for us on Two for Talking. And we appreciate you guys as always. Go to the website, twofortalking.com.
Thanks for staying up.
Yeah, thanks for staying up, everybody. This was great. You can email us, contact@twofortalking.com. Follow us on Twitter, X, whatever Elon calls it nowadays. And subscribe to the show on YouTube, all that good stuff. And check out, you'll get the notification when we go live. And we might start doing some giveaways, hopefully, for, the first people that are there to, so you got to have those notifications hit so you get notified. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week.